Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to take a look at loose graded vintage Star Wars items, AFA, CAS, and UKG graded. Everything from early stuff like the double telescoping lightsaber Luke Skywalker, all the way through the last 17 line. We've got some Spanish figures as well, so pretty good mix here. And let's go ahead and start with some of the big boys that sold. The first one was a CAS 80 double telescoping Luke Skywalker. So very nice high grade example. And this one was just graded this year. This was a 3-line Hong Kong. We've talked about this on the channel. The double telescoping Luke Skywalker could be paired with either the Hong Kong 3-line or the 2-line. And I think, don't quote me on this, but I think that there are specific COO markings on the back of the leg for those 2 and 3-line. The 2-line's considered a little bit more desirable, but this is the 3-line. This was a lettered saber hilt, MM on the hilt. So very nice and straight, very clean looking figure. Definitely an 80 grade, very deserving of an 80 grade in my opinion. And this one sold for $13.31 in an auction. So maybe a little higher than I expected. I might have had this in a what to buy video. I know I sent it out to my Patreons letting them know that this auction was going on. I was expecting kind of 12, maybe 1,300 at the top end, but it blew past that number. Not too much past it, but it did finish at $13.31. Next up was a one I did have in my what to buy video, but it sat for a little while, and it was a new case style vinyl Cape Jawa graded AFA 85. So there you go, AFA 85 vinyl Cape Jawa, new case style, beautiful example. And this one was listed by a seller that I've bought from in the past, so I was pretty tempted on this one, to be honest with you, just because I sold mine last year to help fund a college fund for my nephew. But it just didn't work out timing-wise. I didn't have the money. I'd blown it all on a couple of other items, but this was a very nice deal, I feel like, at $3,000. So somebody got a pretty good deal on that, I feel like, at $3,000 plus $10 shipping. A couple of different power droids sold, one of them UKG graded, one of them AFA graded. This was a UKG 85 standard Hong Kong, straight 85s for the subscore, recently graded. That one sold in a buy it now situation for 102 pounds, which is 129 US dollars. And then Vaults of Yavin had this one for sale. This was a short V mold, and they just started kind of recently labeling this. And what's the short V? Well, if you look at the top, on the side, at the top portion of his head there, on the side, you can see that the V mold is a lot shorter than this one that has a much longer mold to it. And again, AFA just started labeling this as such. So it's become kind of a very desirable variant among collectors. And this is the first one I've seen sell in a while, but it was an AFA 80. It sold in an auction for $167. So $167 on that one. It was relisted, so I don't know if the buyer just didn't pay or what, but you know, for AFA 85s, I think the last one I saw sell sold for over $300 in an AFA 85 labeled short V mold. And for the other one, they don't label it as long V mold. They just label it as the power droid. They only note the V mold on this short V mold. So there you go, $167 on that one. Here was an early solid dome R2-D2, and this one was a pretty nice example. You know, I take that back. This might just be the regular. So this one says solid dome. There is a dark blue paint app version of the solid dome that I think is kind of considered the early bird R2-D2. For some reason in my mind, I thought this was what that was sold. But this is just a standard solid dome. You can see there, it's got kind of the lighter blue paint apps on the head versus the darker blue dome that you see on some. But this one did sell in a buy it now situation for $250, which is 250 pounds, which is 315 US dollars. And that one sat for a little while. I was surprised by that. I was kind of tempted on it because I don't have an early first 12 R2-D2. I've got several sensor scopes, I think. I might only have one sensor scope. I can't remember. But, you know, to me, that's a nice looking figure for that price, given that AFA 85s can sit you back, you know, probably close to double that price. I mean, certainly in the $450 to $500 range for an AFA 85, but I've seen some even recently sell as high as $600. You'll have to excuse me. I need a sip because my throat is a little dry. But anyway, that UKG 85 did sell again for $250. pounds, which is $315. Pretty good deal, I feel like, just given the discount relative to what an AFA 85 sells for. And the sticker on that was really clean. I mean, you know, there was some very light scuffs to it, but not yellowed at all. If it is, it's hard to tell by my eyes anyway. It's very, very clean looking sticker. And I think it's worth every penny of that price. Here's another one that I thought was a good deal. I sent this out to my Patreon supporters. This was a UKG 80% Droid Factory R2-D2. So it's got the 3 legs. Now, the sticker was yellowed, okay? So that was something I did note in the Patreon alert, Buy It Now alert. It's like, hey, look, the sticker's yellowed. It's got the 80 grade, and it probably is about an 80 grade. You know, you could maybe argue that it's a 75 plus. It does have some dirt or some grime down there on the bottom of the sticker there. It's funny how crystal white, or, you know, snow white the leg is, the third leg versus the other 2 legs, which, you know, seem to maybe have some discoloration to it. So is it an 80%? I bet if you crack this one out and send it to AFA, it'd probably get a 75. That'd be my guess on that one. But still, it's sold for not much more than what loose, ungraded examples in this kind of condition sell for. And that's why I sent it. I sent it out to my page. I was like, look, you can get one. You know, is it overgraded? Maybe, but, you know, ungraded in about this condition, I see them sell all the time for $300 to $350 in either Buy It Nows or in auction. So I thought that was a pretty fair deal for what it was. And it was listed for 275 pounds. It sold for 235 pounds, which equates to $296, which again is about where they can go for in this kind of condition ungraded. So I thought that was a pretty good deal. Next up is an interesting one. This was a lettered saber hilt Darth Vader. And, you know, it was labeled an early version BP hilt, which don't quote me on this. I'm not an expert when it comes to all these saber hilts and letterings and all that stuff. So don't quote me on this. But I think if the saber hilt has 2 letters, it's considered an early saber hilt. And I believe also that this particular Vader has got kind of the longer neck, which was the early mold for Darth Vader that appeared in like the, you know, very early 12 backs and things like that. I've got a couple of these that are like that. And I vaguely remember when I bought them from that seller that when you see this kind of longer neck on the Vader, you can see very, very clearly that the neck, it kind of sits up a little bit higher than some of the later versions where it's kind of, you know, they modified the mold a little bit so the neck doesn't kind of stick up like that. So I'm in my opinion, this is kind of one of those early Vader variations, and it's just harder to find this one where the neck kind of sticks up like that. Plus, it came with a saber that had the double letters on it. So to me, I agree with the listing on this, that it's kind of an early version of Vader. And it was also a 90%, by the way, straight 90s for the sub score. It was listed for 250 pounds. One of my patrons bought this, Patreon members bought this, and the price was 205 pounds, which is $259, which to me, that's a great deal. I mean, I see UKG 90% Vaders, even in auction, sell for more than this. So I thought that was a really good deal for straight 90 sub scores, early version of Vader with that longer neck, and then also the double letters on the saber hilt. So pretty good deal there. You guys can correct me in the comments as you're leaving a like if you disagree with that assessment, but that's kind of always been my consideration of this kind of longer neck Vader along with the 2 letters on the saber hilt. Next up, we got some Spanish figures. This was a UKG 85% Spanish PBP Han Solo. This one is the pink face variation. So there is also a pale face variation with a much darker purple jacket. This one is the pink face. It's a little bit more standard color with the jacket color, but you can see the label there, UKG 85% Spanish PBP pink face Han Solo Hoth. And that one sold for 165 pounds, which is $208. And again, one of my Patreon members bought this one, and I had it on my watch list, and I almost pulled the trigger on it. And then he messaged me and said, hey, I bought it. I was like, okay, thank God. I don't have to spend any money right now. So congrats on that one. I thought that was a good deal. That's a price I would have paid all day long. Here was another one that was picked up in a Buy It Now alert I sent to my Patreon members. And this is a beautiful Spanish Pac black neck Lando Calrissian. So it's got that black neck that we've talked about. It also did have the textured cape. So you can see there's the label, textured cape. Lando Calrissian, made in Hong Kong. Now, this one does say textured Cape Pock. It should have also said, I think, black neck, but because I've since learned that there is a brown neck Spanish Pock Lando, which I don't have, but this one definitely has the black neck. This one looks to be maybe a little undergraded. I don't know. It did have some wear on the hand there. You can see that the paint apps have come off on the hand. But, you know, my UKG 85 for this one looks almost the same condition to me. So I thought this was a pretty good deal. This one did have a little bit more hair rub also. So it got the 75. I would argue that mine's probably a little overgraded, and I overpaid for mine. I paid way too much. You go like 2 or 3 years without seeing a black neck Pock Lando Calrissian, and then we've seen 4 in the last like 2 months. So it's just the way it goes in collecting. Of course, I bought the one where you overpaid for it, but, you know, that's the way it goes. But anyway, this one did sell for 250 pounds, which is $315 US. I thought that was a pretty good deal, though, especially relative to what I paid for mine. Next up, here's another Spanish figure. This was a UKG 75% pale face, dark brown Hoth Rebel Soldier, a pretty desirable variant. Definitely at most a 75. I mean, it's got some chipping to the bottom of the feet there. It's got some chipping to the paint on the hips, and then it also has chipping on the face there. But this one was listed for 400 pounds, which is $504 US. It also came with the standard Bespin blaster instead of the metallic blaster. Now, if this was a UKG 75% and it had the metallic blaster, I would wager this one would probably go between $800 and $900, believe it or not. That metallic blaster alone can go to $300 to $400 just for the blaster by itself. So it's very, very expensive. But this is a very desirable variant. It did get the 75. It's on the low end of a 75 if you ask me, but that's the first one I've seen for sale on eBay in a while. So very nice looking figure there. Next up, this was a cool one. This was a loose graded Wampa CAS 80%, but it had the box next to it, and the box was in pristine condition, no fold on the flap whatsoever. And so there it is, Hoth Wampa displayed with box, UKG 80%. So very nice example. It did have slight yellowing to the torso, which is common. That does tend to happen. And I think it's appropriately graded for what it is. But I think it was nice that they were able to salvage the box and include it inside the acrylic case, because that box is in such good condition. It would have been a shame to grade the Wampa and not have the box inside. So that one did sell for $600 US. We've got some AFA examples that sold. We had an AFA 85 Hoth Snowtrooper. This was the Hong Kong COO with the split visors. And they've started, since this one's been graded, they've started labeling it split visor or univisor, and then they also label it where the COO is, either on the back of the leg or on the boot. And so this was before they started doing that. But it was an AFA 85. That one sold in an auction for $202.50. You could maybe make an argument that the legs are yellowing there. It could just be bad lighting for the photos, admittedly. But the arms and the torso, they look a slightly different shade. The torso is a little bit brighter white. And they should be a little bit different because they're different types of plastics. But, whether that's yellowing or just bad lighting, I don't know. But that one did sell for $202.50. There was also an old K-style uncirculated 85 orange logo AT-AT driver. And so the orange logo just refers to the top of the head there. That logo could either be painted in orange or in red. I don't know which one's more common. I tend to think that they're both about the same, since I see them both about the same on the grading labels. But orange logo, uncirculated 85, admittedly an old K-style. That one sold for $240.50. Next up was an older K-style AFA 85 China COO TIE Fighter palette. I thought this was a pretty good deal. It's a little tougher to find the China COO for the TIE Fighter palette. Those only appeared on like the Return of the Jedi card backs, so a little bit later card backs. But it was an AFA 85, older K-style. That one sold for $135.50. I thought that was a great deal. I think I paid closer to $175 for my AFA 85 newer K-style. So you got some playroom there if you wanted to send that one back in to get with the new K-style for any of those. I thought that they were all pretty fair deals. Next up was another one. Here was a Hong Kong COO TIE Fighter palette, new K-style, AFA 85. That one also sold for cheap, $130.50 plus $6 shipping. So about $137 or so after shipping. Great deal on that one as well. Next up, same seller also had an 80 plus grade Walrus Man. This one was the Hong Kong with the pink tusk, new case style. That one sold for $77. Really good deal on that one as well. And then he also had an archival case, AFA 85 standard Hong Kong squid head. And that one sold for $81 as well. Another really good deal on that one in an auction. So you just never know on these auctions whether they're going to get spotted by by some buyers. But you know, for sub $100 for that, I thought that was a pretty good deal. Next up, we had a CAS 85 Blue Saber Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. Now, it was a Hong Kong with the snap cape as well. So that's a really very desirable variant. CAS 85, and again, the Blue Saber, which makes this one a little more expensive. Now, that one sold for $625, which to me seems like a little bit of an overpay. I think that you could probably pick that one up in an auction for a lot less. That's just my guess. You know, $450 to $500. Luke Jedis have come down in price a lot lately. I've seen them sell, whether they're AFA, UKG, or CAS graded. Try not to overpay for them right now because they've come down a lot. You know, I just picked up that molded face Taiwan AFA 85 Luke new case style for sub $200. I think it might have been a little bit more than that. I can't remember, but it was very cheap. I know that. So it was a lot less than where it had been going for. So don't overpay for it. I think $625 is too much. This is maybe max. I think more like $400 to $450. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm not trying to dog you if that's what you paid. I certainly have overpaid for some items in the past. Next up was an AFA 85 dark blue emblem Death Squad Commander. This is the Hong Kong COO dark blue emblem. I feel like the dark blue is a little bit harder to find than the light blue. I might have that mixed up. I can't remember, but that was a pretty good deal at $153.50 on 10 bids. And then next up, we had a UKG 90% Imperial Commander. This one I thought sold for a really good deal. This one sold for 280 pounds, which is $353 US dollars. I mean, sometimes I see Imperial Gunners sell, I think I said Imperial Commander, Imperial Gunner. Sometimes I see the Imperial Gunner sell loose, ungraded for $300 or more on eBay in auctions. So to get a UKG 90% for $353, that was a bargain of a deal. So that's one that seems to be coming down in price a little bit. So, you know, again, don't overpay on that one. Finally, one that is not coming down in price is an AFA 85 Yak Face. And, you know, it might just be bad lighting to me, but to me, it looks like the torso on this one is yellowed. You know, in my opinion, I feel like that torso or the shirt just looks a little darker than what I'm used to. Again, it could just be bad lighting on that one. But this was an old case style AFA 85 Yak Face, and that one sold for $861. So Yak Face continues to command big money on the secondary market in high grade. So I hope you enjoyed this look at recent sales for loose graded gems. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching, and I'll be back soon.